everyone, it's Libby from maighstirtarot. Yes, I'm coming on for an out of the ordinary video today in light of what came forward last night using my Light Seers Tarot. Despite every feels that I had that Australia would do the decent thing and the vote for the voice to Parliament and the inclusion in the Australian Constitution for our First Nations people would come would step up. We would step up, but sadly, to my heart, that's not the case. So, good lesson to all you readers out there, not to bring your bias into a reading. I suspect that I had brought my empathic, hopeful bias in, but I do want to have a look to see, well, where now? So, entertainment only. It was resoundingly defeated, so kudos to Marianne over at Revealing Light Tarot for picking that up. Again, I read on it twice, and both times I got really positive cards. So I just want to have a look to see where now. So I'd like to acknowledge the Worimi First Nations people on whose traditional lands these videos are made. And I just absolutely want to welcome you on this day. Also in New Zealand, I noticed that the conservative right-leaning government got up as well. Oh man, I shouldn't read. I shouldn't read on issues that I have a vested interest in, and that's why I actually go to a soothsayer, Judy Sweeney, who I've recommended to many of you for my own personal readings because I can't read on myself. But I do want to have a look where to now in regards to the voice in Australia. It's a coming together time. It's a ending of a cycle where we're having it's a legacy that's coming forward, but it's also the ending of a cycle where we find our tribe and we step forward, where we move forward despite the disappointment of the would have, should have, could have. So what I'm really feeling is that the issue was that it was one question. The one question, should we include our First Nations people in the Constitution and should we have a voice to Parliament? I really feel like those questions should have been separated because from what my vibe is that the majority of Australians do want these First Nations people to be recognised in our Constitution. It was the second point that was the stumbling block because the No campaign, they ran a really good fear-mongering negative campaign where literally their byline is, if you don't know, say no. Oh, I mean, it would have been much nicer if you don't know, go and bloody well find out, which I think would have been more appropriate. But yeah, like in politics worldwide, the negative uh, has an easier boat to row. So let's see where this goes from now. Where does this go from now? I'm really feeling there will be a legislated. Oh, I've got cards flinging out everywhere. Hang on a second. I think that just might be. I don't know whether that was lazy shuffling at all, actually, because we have here the King of Cups, the emotional maturity, disappointment, dis- great disappointment in what happened, but we need to turn our attention to the possibilities that we have, something completely out of left field coming forward as we step forward in wisdom and knowledge and truth. So I really feel what happened was there was this devil energy, and I'm not saying devil as in greed and avarice and all the rest of it. It's just it was easier to go down the path of the same old for many, which brought about a stop to this resolution. But there is something significantly new going to come forward to be birthed out of this with wisdom. So I do see that there will be movement forward in regards to this It is just the first step, and my heart absolutely aches that it didn't get through. But yeah, my heart aches that it didn't get through, but we have to turn our attention to the positive. Instead of lamenting about pouring ourselves spiritually and emotionally down this dark well, in the hope that the light will come to the surface, we need to turn our attention towards what we can do and work together. So what I really feel is that it was a step too far for many. We have to remember, you, me, those that are in with the universal vibration, we are leaping ahead. We are streets ahead, and we look to the future and we go, oh my God, we want this, we want it now. But we have to remember, for a lot of people, that it needs to be little steps. So instead of the ladder with the rungs so far apart, we need to move the rungs closer so that we can bring others along with us. And I really feel that that's what's happened, and that's what happened with the New Zealand politics as well. I'm not saying that they're entwined, but I'm saying it's similar in that under the guidance of Jacinda Ardern, she went too far, too fast for the majority of New Zealanders who are not ready yet. And we have to remember as we go through life that we have to, for those of us that are progressive and yes, I want the Star Trek future now, we have to pull ourselves back a little bit and just take the little steps, step by step by step, to move forward. Huge reminder for us, huge reminder that we need to, step by step, take up the blindfold, take the blindfold off and choose our path forward using our feminine intuition, our connection with the universe, and then we can create an amazing future together. So I do want to have a look. The choice was clouded. We know that. And in that fog there was the snake and the scorpion, and there was a clouding of the truth, which clouded the emotional decision in regards to this. For those who knew and that understood, it was a clear-cut decision. But for many, it was they weren't voting with their intellect and their knowledge and their wisdom. They were voting with their emotion. And that's what the far right, the negative, everywhere in the world at the moment is playing on. It's playing on the emotion, the fear of the emotion, instead of the truth of the wisdom and intellect. So we do need to be aware of that. And this is giving us a big kick up the bum to step back and realise that we need to take others along on the path with us. So I just want to see about a future with the voice to Parliament. I mean, you only have to look. What was it, 1967? The year before I was born. Yes, I'm 55. The year before I was born. It was only in 1967 that the government, the federal government in Australia, had a referendum that Australian First Nations people would actually be counted as citizens. That's not long in the past. 55 years, 56 years ago. It was only 56 years ago that a referendum went out and said, the First Nations, please, yes or no, are the First Nations people? Are they citizens of this country? These people had fought in 2 world wars for us. They had a pride in Australia. They had a knowledge. They were with us. They were us. But we didn't acknowledge them as actually being human beings until 1967. And the yes vote was 91%. Yes. So I do feel that if they had broken that question into acknowledgement in the Constitution, we would have had a similar result. Maybe not quite so high because the Conservatives were very good at fear mongering about, oh gosh, we're going to have to pay compensation, and no, it was just a recognition in the Constitution. So I'm just going to break this into two. I'm going to have a look. Will Australian First Nations people be recognised in the Constitution at some stage in the future? Will they be recognised as being the first people? Let's have a look. Sorry about my long rant. Seven of Swords, yeah, I get it. Feeling like they have been betrayed, stabbed in the back, had their history stolen from them with what has happened. I totally get that. However, you do have this light shining through the gloom. So we must hold on to that light. Anguish, despair, heartbreak, loss. What a stab in the heart to our First Nations people this must be. And I can feel their anguish. I can feel it in the land. But we must stay in hope with this white raven here that is going to bring light. But I feel it with every fibre of my being. I was so disappointed. I slept awful last night as the first counting came forward. I slept terrible, knowing that this was the energy, and I could feel the vibration of this energy. So on this side we've got the here and now, and on this side we've got going forward. So the foundation of this reading, the offering of healing, is the foundation. So something is going to be presented forward that is going to set the roots for the healing of this, and opportunity is going to come forward. So will the First Nations people be recognised in the Constitution? I think we're going to have this brought forward again. In the past, it's very much about, well, those of us that knew, we put our emotions to the side and we looked at this with logic and wisdom and knowledge and truth. And can be a icy, chilly, harsh truth, but we looked at this with truth. We looked to the future with the truth. And this is telling me that going into the future, it will be presented again, but without the emotion and in the truth. Crowning this reading, I'm not surprised. Emotionally and spiritually, we need to stop pouring ourselves down this well in the hope this light will be brought to the surface. We need to turn our attention to the seeds that we can plant, what we can do in this moment of disappointment. We need to not lament what could have, should have, would have been. We need to move away from this dark well that is offering us nothing and look at the opportunities we can bring forward and what we do need to move on to, because we do have this support. We are one together, coming together in the immediate future. I think what will happen is there will be recognition of the fact that the question was wrong. I didn't disagree with the question, I just felt that it needed to be in two parts. So we may have another referendum. I know referendums aren't cheap, but divided into this one question and are coming together in the immediate future. Externally, in regards, it was easier to go down the same old and have the puppet play path in regards to the question that was presented. Oh gosh, I shuffled, and here we have them together again. This is internally. When the dust settles, we're going to look at this differently and bring the light forward. Hopes and fears, We need to, the fear is this is going to cause chaos, which I don't see coming. The hope is we need to bring these horses together so that they pull together, the dark, the light together, pulling forward. So that is the hope. The outcome, 5 of Swords, letting go of the anxiety, letting go of the voice in the head that's disparaging, that's telling our subconscious telling us, and we need to step into the light and be the light. Step into the light and be the light. Let go of this. Let go of this. Step into the light and bring forward the positive. Because there are going to be options in front of us. I do believe that our government did consider that if the no vote came through, that there would be other options available. And I do think they are currently considering those other options. A swift kick up the pants to move us forward in the light of the truth. This is the truth moving us forward, and it won't be as big as, but it will be an offer coming forward. An offer coming forward for healing, reconciliation, and nurturing. Because this is about all the tribes, all the mobs coming together, all Australians coming together in a culmination of this healing. So that's in regards to the part of the Constitution. Yes, I do feel that there is going to be more to come forward. Oh, cards flipped over here. More to come forward. I think that the government had already thought of what if the vote didn't succeed. We're looking at the other options at the moment. And I do feel that the majority of Australians did want the Constitution part of the question, but it was the second part of the question that the no vote was so good at playing out that tilted it the other way. But we have this new partnership coming that will bring joy and celebration. And I think they've actually got the alternatives. They already know the alternatives because it is a unity of diversity of coming together for a new beginning. So tell me about the voice to Parliament. Now, the voice to Parliament in this terms is purely an advisory panel of First Nations people elected to the positions by First Nations people with a diversity of youth and wisdom and from urban and rural, from all parts of the country, and it is an advisory panel only for policies that are being presented to government on that affect First Nations people only. Sorry, get my cards up the right way. So show me about the future of the advisory panel, the voice to Parliament. I think it's going to be legislated in. The voice to Parliament. What are we looking at for the voice to Parliament? Future of the voice to Parliament. I think what's going to happen is going to be oh, thank you. What I'm going, okay. There is no calendar in the universe, as I'm being reminded again. What I feel is going to happen is that they're going to legislate a voice to Parliament to show the people how it will work. Then they'll go back to another referendum and have a two-part question, is what I'm getting. Don't know when that, why am I getting 4 years? What are our election cycles? I think for our federal government, I think it's 3 years for our federal government, 4 years for our state. I can't remember which way. I just know when I've got to vote, I've got to vote. But I'm seeing 4 years. So we're looking at the voice to Parliament. This is the card. Oh, 2 cards. Right. 2 cards popped out. The first card, holding on to what is really important, holding on to the healing, the ideas, the possibilities, the options. So I think they're going to legislate it in. Its challenge is going to be, and this is the here and now, the challenge is going to be the emotion, the devious emotion clouding people's choices, their judgment on an emotional level. And actually this was the challenge for it getting voted in, was the emotional clouding of this subject. Foundation, despair, heartbreak, loss, grief, barrenness, the loss, betrayal. This is the here and now. This is how our First Nations people feel in regards to this not getting through, but I want to see what the future is going forward. Was an emotive subject. There was an emotional maturity that was brought forward in regards to bringing forward this legislation. There was an expectation that the Australian people were emotionally mature enough to make a decision on this, but they weren't quite there yet. They weren't there yet. Some of us were, but there was this fear campaign. Crowning this reading, restriction, the perception of restriction. However, this figure here looking into the mirror is not bound, is not tied. The government is not tied to this decision. And what I'm seeing is this is also about the fact that it will be legislated to start with, which means the government won't be tied to continuing the voice. And I think that was part of the problem, was that those that weren't ready yet found is that if it was part of our constitution, it was extremely difficult to undo. So this is crowning, this is about bringing this forward, but it won't restrict future governments from removing it or changing it as we go forward. So I think it was the restriction that was the undoing. Okay, immediate future. Yeah, we just crossed this crevasse on our sword of truth with our tightrope. It's about bringing new ideas, new legislation. So I'm talking about the voice here, new ideas coming forward, new legislation, or just being held up by the idea. Thank you. Being held up by the idea as they bring new legislation forward, and it has to cross this sword of truth over this drop, which is about the legislation going through Parliament. Externally, packing up what, letting go of the baggage that does not, externally, letting go of the baggage that no longer serves us, packing up a new a new plan, a new message, and moving forward. So this was the end of the cycle. Let go of what did not work, pack up the new plan, and move forward, lighter, freer. Internally, working together. Love it, love it, love it. Hopes and fears. things being hidden. It's also a hope about moving to the dark, to the light, about bringing forth our compassion, our feminine compassion and empathy. But the fear was that there was things, that there were things hidden. There was a hidden agenda. Thank you, guys. The fear was that there was a hidden agenda, but the hope is that we can move from this darkness to the light. The outcome, yeah, a new plan coming forward, movement forward that will be seen and heard for what it really is, and it will dispel the darkness. And what I'm really getting is it will dispel the fear. And we are at a moment in time where people will look back and go, what was I scared of? It's like years ago we had Kevin Rudd, our Prime Minister of the time, stood up and apologised to the people of the stolen generation, where children were taken from their parents and whitenised, for want of a better word, to aside from the fact there's no such word, put into white families. And if they weren't white enough to put into a white family, they were put into missions. Horrible, horrible conditions. And I know similar happened in Canada. To whitewash our history and our country. And Kevin Rudd stood up and apologised to the people who had been taken and to the parents who had lost their children. And there was so much fear about, oh my God, now we're going to have to pay compensation, etc., etc. This is what the Conservative opposition were playing on. They were playing on the fear. But it never came to, their fear never came to pass. And I think that's what's going to happen now, that when this legislation comes into place and it is working and it is shown for what it is and it is movement forward, that we're going to be at a place and time in history where we look back and we go, there was nothing, why were we fearful? But sadly, sometimes some people don't learn. Here is the giving and receiving of healing. It's not a financial compensation. It is the giving and receiving so that the First Nations people can have a say in legislation that affects them, because they know best. Instead of having old white men dictating to them what's best for them, they can actually say what is best for them. So this is the cycle going around. This is them helping the government helping them, and in turn bringing about the exchange of opportunities, the exchange of potentials, and the exchange of healing. There's a lot of anxiety in regards to this, but remember the white raven. There's a lot of hurt. It is a step backwards. We need to realise that it is a step backwards, where we just need to reconsider on an intellectual level. There was all this nasty, nasty infighting happening as some of us were reaching for this higher vibration, and we were being torn down. But we will come to this emotional unity, this emotional togetherness with strength. There is strength in this new plan that is coming forward. There will be a passion in this new plan coming forward. The message will be powerful, and it is brought with the strength of the lion, but also the strength of the lamb. The compassionate, empathetic strength, where we are allowing First Nations people to have control and say over legislation that affects First Nations people. And we will have unity, where we can step through into a new chapter, where we can manifest possibilities and create a future going forward, where we are one, where we are together. So thank you for joining me. Sorry that I brought my own personal bias. I do believe that 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 I was on the right side of history. I do believe that going forward, we will be given this opportunity again to vote correctly. My personal opinion, don't shoot the messenger. But I think what's going to happen is that the government is going to bring forward the voice to Parliament as legislation. And I do get 4. So within 4 years, I think we're going to be able to choose on this again. And I think it's going to be a different choice, but I think the questions are also going to be separated. So thank you. Love to you all. Take care.